Some people laugh so easily that you assume their life must be light. They smile in every conversation. They crack jokes when things get awkward. They make pain sound funny, and because of that, no one ever asks them the dangerous question, are you actually okay? Psychology tells us something uncomfortable. People who laugh the most are often the ones working the hardest to hide what they feel. And once you understand why, you'll never look at laughter the same way again. In every workplace, every friend group, every family, there is usually one person who keeps the energy alive. They lighten the mood. They turn tension into humor. They make other people comfortable. We label them quickly. Funny, positive, so easygoing. But psychology warns us about confusing function with truth, because sometimes that laughter isn't joy, it's strategy. From a psychological perspective, humans are wired for belonging. Our nervous system is constantly asking one question: am I safe here? For some people, being quiet never felt safe. Being serious felt risky. Being emotional felt dangerous. So they learned something early. If I make people laugh, they won't reject me. Laughter becomes a social survival skill, a way to stay needed, a way to stay included, not because they want attention, but because they fear invisibility. This pattern rarely starts in adulthood. It usually begins much earlier, in childhood homes, where emotions weren't welcomed, in classroom, where sensitivity was mocked, in families, where being easy was safer than being honest. Many people who laugh excessively learn that their real feelings were inconvenient, so they adapted. They didn't stop feeling pain. They just learned to disguise it. Humor became the mask that made them acceptable. Here's the psychological conflict no one talks about. Outwardly, these people appear light. Internally, they often feel heavy. They are deeply observant, emotionally aware, highly sensitive to mood shifts, but instead of expressing discomfort, they neutralize it. They joke, they smile, they redirect attention away from themselves. Not because they lack depth, but because depth once cost them safety. For many people who laugh too much, silence is not peaceful. Silence feels exposed, because silence invites questions, and questions invite honesty. So they fill the space. They speak first, they laugh first, they deflect before anyone can look closer. Psychology calls this emotional masking, but what it really is self-protection. Here's where society gets it wrong. We assume loud laughter equals confidence. We assume humor equals emotional strength. But research consistently shows people who rely heavily on humor often struggle to express vulnerability directly. They are strong for others, but disconnected from their own needs. They become the emotional support they never received, and eventually, that becomes exhausting. One of the quiet tragedy, being the funny one, is that people stop checking in. Why would they? You seem fine. You're always smiling. You never complain. So your pain goes unnoticed. Not because it's small, but because it's invisible. And over time, you start to believe something dangerous. My feelings don't matter unless I make them entertaining. Psychologically, people who laugh too much often fear burdening others. They've learned to be low maintenance, emotionally efficient, easy to be around. So when they're struggling, they minimize it, they laugh it off, they downplay it, They say, "I'm fine," not because they are fine, but because they don't feel permitted to be anything else. From a nervous system perspective, constant laughter can be a form of regulation. It keeps emotions from rising too high. It prevents uncomfortable conversations. It maintains social harmony, but long-term emotional suppression doesn't disappear. It settles in the body, in fatigue, in quiet anxiety, and often in unexplained sadness. People who laugh excessively don't need advice. They don't need to be told to open up. What they need is safety. They need to know that their seriousness won't be rejected, that their sadness won't be dismissed, that their silence won't be misunderstood. Healing doesn't start when they stop laughing. It starts when they feel they don't have to. So the next time you meet someone who is always joking, don't assume their life is easy. Notice how quickly they shift the focus. Notice how rarely they talk about themselves. Notice how deeply they understand others. That laughter might not be happiness, it might be resilience. And if you're listening to this, thinking, "That sounds like me," there is nothing wrong with you. You are not fake. You are not shallow. You are not weak. You adapted, but you're allowed to outgrow that adaptation. You're allowed to be quiet. You're allowed to be serious. You're allowed to be seen without performing. Sometimes people who laugh the loudest are simply trying to stay safe in a world that never taught them how to be vulnerable. And understanding that is the first step toward real emotional freedom. If this video felt uncomfortably accurate, it means you're becoming aware, and awareness is where healing begins.